Hey, friends. If you've been loving the conversations we have here on the All in My Head podcast, and you're looking for a way to ground your thoughts, reflect more deeply, or just make space for yourself in the chaos, I've created something for you. My very own journals are now available on Amazon. Whether it's the gratitude journal to help you focus on the good, especially on the hard days, or the Mind Unwind Journal, a space to release, reset, and realign. These were made with you in mind, my thoughtful, deep feeling, always reflecting listeners. Just head to Amazon and search Gratitude, Mind Unwind Journal, or my name, Jenny Jimenez-Sullivan, or check the link in the show notes to grab your copy. It's simple, intentional, and ready to meet you wherever you are. Listen to the All in My Head podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Please, allow me to show you something.
Welcome back to the All in My Head podcast. I'm Jenny, and I am your host. And you have landed here today for episode 27. And episode 27 is called The Pain You Can't See: What Living with an Invisible Disability Really Looks Like. And this is something that's going to be vulnerable for me. And if you've been here for a while, you know that that's kind of how I lead, with my heart and what's been on my heart and in my mind. But it's personal and it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but that's kind of the point. Invisible disabilities are everywhere. There are chronic illnesses, mental health disorders, neurological conditions, visual diseases and illnesses, and autoimmune. And those can completely reshape a person's life. But on the outside, I might never even know that someone is battling this invisible illness. You might see someone who looks fine and someone who's smiling and showing up and doing all the things, when inside their body or their mind is waging a war that no one else can see. And I know that in the past I have been guilty of this. So again, being very honest, and not necessarily something that I'm proud of, but that I have seen people in the past where to me they looked fine. And I might have snapped to judgment and thought, this person looks fine. This person isn't dealing with anything. I can't see something, so it must not be there. And that's a huge misconception, and something, again, that I was guilty of. And so we must always lead with, don't judge a book by its cover. And you never know what someone is secretly going through. So pulling back on that judgment is a big part of growth and mindset and shifting our mindsets. I want to start, though, with something that I call the invisibility paradox, right? It's this strange in between when you're not well enough to live life fully, but you look too well for anyone to believe that you're unwell. And I put that in air quotes. And people will hear things like, well, you don't look sick, or it must be nice to stay home all day. Have you tried yoga or drinking more water? And certainly, again, I've been guilty of saying some of these things and kind of thinking out loud. And maybe it was more in an era of trying to be helpful, but, it's not really helpful for a person who is battling these disabilities or these diseases or disorders that are a struggle every day. And every time someone hears those things, or there's many other statements that people can and do make, it's like a cut. It's like a little cut, and not because people mean to harm, but because they simply don't understand what they can't see. And again, I have been guilty of that. For so many people living with an invisible disability, it's difficult and it's a struggle, but the hardest part isn't always the illness itself. It's this constant need to prove your pain to others. If you are a person who is in good health and you don't have any type of disability or disease or disorder or illness, what a blessing. And be grateful for that. And I am grateful for you for that, for having that in your life. But imagine waking up every day unsure of how your body will feel, or if you'll even have the energy to make it through an entire day, or even an entire morning, or even just an hour. And then imagine putting on this brave face, going to work, showing up for your family, and pretending to be normal and pretending like everything's okay. That's the paradox I'm talking about. Being both sick yet functional, visible but dismissed. And let's talk about the emotional side of things, because invisible pain doesn't just stop at the body. It seeps into everything in your life. It seeps into your self-worth, your relationships, and your sense of belonging. When you live with something that others can't see, you start to question your own reality. Am I exaggerating? Maybe I'm just lazy. And do I deserve to rest when others are out there doing more? And that's just gaslighting. And it's not always from other people, but you're gaslighting yourself. And then there's grief. The grief of who you used to be, the grief of plans that had to change, and the grief of watching the world move at a pace that your body just can't keep up with. And sometimes the hardest part isn't the actual physical pain. It's the loneliness that comes with it. Because when nobody else sees it, no one really gets it. And again, I would say that I was definitely guilty of this. I might hear of someone that was struggling with something, or they were missing work because of an illness or a disease or a disorder, something that we couldn't see. And, I, again, not proud of it, but I would kind of judge and think, is this person really battling something that's so bad that they're out for a week or 3 days or whatever the case may be? And it wasn't until 2017 when I had a car accident, and thankfully it wasn't major in the sense that I was hospitalized, but I had some very real injuries to my neck and to my spine, and injuries that are only going to get progressively worse, right? They're not going to get better. And the first week out was rough, and I was fortunate to have a week off from work that week because we had a massive snowstorm when I lived in Connecticut. And so it forced school to shut down and it forced me to be still, which I was grateful for, because day one, I felt okay. I just was kind of in shock. But as the days progressed, I felt the pain and I felt the gravity of what this car accident did to my physical body. And again, this is something that gets progressively worse. So there are days where, even though I feel pain every day, that the pain is tolerable. And then there are days where I cannot get out of bed. I can barely open my eyes because of the pain in my neck, the pain in my arm, the numbness, the terrible headaches that come with this type of an injury, it makes me nauseous. It really can lay me out. And that can go on for a day, that can go on for half a day, that can go on for multiple days. So anyone who knows me knows I'm a go, go, go person. I always have been, and more so because I had this, teaching position that I needed to do. I had 3 children that needed to be everywhere and go everywhere and do all the things that kids do, sports and activities. And to be bedridden or to kind of have to not go about my everyday life was very hard to take. It was not something that I easily came to grips with. And I think I know that that changed my perspective greatly because now I needed to listen to my body. And that may mean I needed to take time off from work. That may mean that I wasn't able to go and do things. That definitely changed how I moved my body. I was someone who worked out every day. I ran on the treadmill, I lifted weights, I threw kettlebells. I did all the things to keep my body healthy, but also that was part of, a process for me in my mental health. And I wasn't able to do those things anymore. And so I had to come to grips with that. And I also had to grieve that, right? Grieve how my body used to be and how it is now. And that was hard for me. I was kind of in the throes of perimenopause at that point, and so my body was already changing. And now I was gaining weight, and I wasn't able to work out in the way that I was used to. And so it halted me from working out for a very long time because I couldn't reimagine what would be a healthy way for me to move my body, right? For me, all the ways that I used to work out were working out to me. So, you know, mindfulness practice, even though I always walked in a state of mindfulness, wasn't something that I was going to do. Stretching, you stretch to work out, but not in that way as an actual workout. So I needed to reimagine all the ways that I still could move my body because I had to be grateful and I had to step into this space of gratitude for what my body was still able to do. Not everybody has the ability to do those things. And I needed to put that into perspective that, just because I have it this bad, so many other people have it much worse. But it helped me to get out of that judgmental mind. And so I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason. And it did help me to look at people in a softer light and to, I'm definitely an empath, but it helped me to step into a space of empathy and look at someone and say, I don't know what that person is battling. And it could very well be much worse than anything that I'm going through or have gone through. So I feel like if I got those things out of it, then it was for a reason. And for that, I'm grateful. And so in that, my husband had to definitely pick up a lot of slack and be physically available to help and do all the things that I wasn't able to do. And then cut to 2.5 years ago, and about that time where, my husband started battling very intensely this autoimmune disorder. And now we were both in this physical space of pain and needing help. And most of those days I was able to step up and be the caregiver and make the appointments and try to get him to see the specialist that he so desperately needed. That was a battle. And it was difficult. I'm not going to say it wasn't difficult because it was. There were days where I felt horrible and he felt horrible. And neither one of us are people who just sit and are stagnant. So it was difficult and it was depressing in a very real way. And it took a toll. I would definitely say it was messing with our mental health. And it was something that, again, not proud of it. But when I felt horrible and I was feeling a certain type of way physically, and I still needed to help him, there was definitely that fatigue, that caregiver fatigue, and definitely felt this sense of not getting everything I needed and having to pour in when I was kind of feeling depleted. So I definitely would say that that was something that I struggled with. And, I needed to kind of understand and have a conversation with him about what we needed to do jointly to be able to come to the table and support each other on this journey. And, as you get older, your body starts to do things. And, you just have to kind of listen to your body. And as a couple, we needed to support each other and check in and just make sure, like, what did this other person need, and vocalize, right? I was never a person who was good at asking for help. I felt like I needed to carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. And you can't do that when you have a disability. When you're physically breaking down, you're only going to make it worse. So it was a matter of asking for help and verbalizing what I needed, but also verbalizing to him that I was feeling drained and that I couldn't help him as much as he needed, and that we both needed to come to this happy medium of saying, okay, this is what we need to do. And that's the reminder. That was such a big reminder for us as we were sitting here struggling through these things, trying to find the right specialist, trying to find the right help, because I'm not a big person on wanting to take any type of medication. I try to do things as holistically as possible, and he wanted the medication to help ease and calm things down because his body was raging so much it was causing other health issues. And so I needed to help him navigate that and help him find the things he needed that could bring him some ease, and in turn bring us some ease. But that's just such a big reminder. And it was a big reminder for us that you never know what someone else is carrying, right? When you're in it, your perspective changes greatly. And, what you don't see, you might not understand. It gave us a different level of understanding for sure. And it gave us a different type of empathy. Again, when he was going into these specialists, and I was going into these specialists, I was seeing people who were much worse off than me. And not to minimize the pain or the physical heaviness of what we were feeling, but we were still able to walk into that doctor's appointments and other people weren't. So it helped us to heighten our empathy in what we can't see and what other people are struggling with. And if you're someone living with an invisible disability, please, please know that your pain is real and your limits are real and you are not alone. And in this healthcare environment that we're in this country, it is difficult to get the medical attention that you need and have people see your pain in a very real way. So seek that out and find the right people and team to help support your journey. Do not be gaslit into believing that you are not feeling what you're feeling. It is real, it is valid, and I validate that for you. And if you're someone who loves or works with someone who has a disability, who is struggling physically, and who is battling this very real battle, slow down, listen to them, and don't assume anything. And ask how you can support them. And believe them when they tell you what they need, because it is difficult for someone who is going through these invisible disabilities or disorders or diseases to ask for help or to accept that help. And empathy doesn't cost anything, but to someone who is battling in that way, it can mean everything. We don't need to see someone's pain to respect it. And like I said, I was definitely guilty of maybe not respecting or even questioning if someone's pain was as extreme as they said it was, and that I'm not proud of but that is real, and I validate that I definitely walked in that way. And that has changed for me 1000%. We don't need proof of someone's pain to offer compassion. And, just before we close on this subject, and there's so much more I could talk about with this, and I probably will actually do a second part and talk with someone who has become a good friend and, go a little bit deeper into this in a different way. But before we close, I want to leave you with this thought. Sometimes the strongest people aren't the ones climbing mountains. They're the ones quietly fighting battles within their own bodies every single day just to make it through. So if that's you, I see you, I validate you, I honor you because I know what that struggle feels like. And I hope today reminded you that your struggle is not invisible in this space. I want to thank you all for listening to the All in My Head podcast. If this resonated with you today and this episode spoke to you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. Reach out, send me a message, and let me know that this episode spoke to you or helped you in any way. And until next time, take care of your body, your mind, and truly take a moment to look at someone with more compassion and offer them a helping hand. It may be the only one that they have gotten in a long time. Have a wonderful day.
Let's go.
Listen to the All in My Head podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, and wherever you get your podcasts.